Thank you so much, Amanda. That's right. I am with Director General Rafael Grossi. Thank you so much for joining us here in the studio.
My pleasure.
You met with Secretary Blinken. You also just met with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. How did this week come about? Who initiated this invitation to have these meetings?
Well, it's part of my normal business to be in close touch with all the member states. Of course, the United States is one key partner for the IAEA. And of course, there are very topical issues of the day that we may be discussing about, Iran and other things, in which the United States has a great stake. So it was only logical for me to come and discuss about these things.
When it comes to Iran, you met repeatedly with former Secretary of State Michael Pompeo.
Yeah.
What is the difference, basically, of the diverging policy, which is very big when it comes to Iran, between the former administration and this one?
Well, there is a diverging policy that's normal in democracies. But one thing I can say is that the support of the United States to the IAEA has been steadfast and very permanent, irrespective of whether you have a Republican or a Democrat at the White House.
You came out with a number of reports during the Trump administration. Will that continue? Will the number of reports and the robustness of that continue?
That's my job. That's my job. Again, irrespective of who is sitting here at the White House, we have to inform. We have a massive inspection effort all over the world, in particular in Iran, and then we have to have our quarterly reports, and on top of that, when something important happens, we need also to inform, so people know, and maybe countries can take a position or a stance about them.
On Iran, you brokered the most recent agreement in terms of the IAEA being really able to surveillance what is going on in these centrifuge workshops. That was in September.
Yes.
When do you plan to go back to Tehran?
Within a few days, I hope. To be back in Tehran in September. Back in September, what we agreed was that I would be returning, because we had at that point we had technical conversations. But of course, this is a vast issue that has not only political implications. There are technical implications. There are very deep political issues that we need to discuss. We need to hammer out and to come to understandings. There is a new government.
Right.
In Iran, a government coming from a group that expresses very strong views about the nuclear program, the cooperation with international organizations like the IAEA. So we need to adjust to each other, like in any relationship. And I hadn't had this opportunity yet, so I'm going back.
So you're going back in the coming days. So basically, after you leave the United States, at some point after that, this month.
Soon thereafter, yeah.
You'll be going there. Who are you going to meet in Tehran?
Well, it's for them to decide. I suppose we will be having meetings at high political level.
So potentially Hossein Amir Abdollahian, the new foreign minister?
Yeah.
Maybe Raisi?
Maybe, if he's so kind to see me.
So this is a new government you're working with. I asked you about the difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration. What is the difference between this regime opposed to Rouhani and his team?
Well, it is clear that they came to power, and this is no secret, with a critical view on everything about JCPOA, the way things happened, and I think they have a different approach in general. As we speak, there is still an intention, I think, from both sides, from the P5+1, so to speak. I mean, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, plus Germany under the coordination of the European Union, and then on the other side, Iran. And there is still, and I underline still, there's still an idea to go back to the negotiations they were having, and then to see if they can come back to the agreement, of which we, the IAEA, we are the guarantors. We are the inspectors.
Right. You're not part of the JCPOA agreement, but you are the guarantors for this agreement.
Indeed.
And because of that role, you are likely in touch, like you're in the United States, with a number of key stakeholders.
All of them.
What is the outlook? Because the mood music has been quite negative.
Well, I would say there are phases. When anything goes on for so long, it is inevitable that you will have deep points and you have better moments. At this moment, we are in a sort of an uncertain phase because the process is supposed to be continuing, but at the same time, there's like an impasse or an interruption or a pause. All of the negotiators are positioning themselves to go back to that. But I'm not a commentator of their thing. I have to do mine.
But still, you maintain that all parties are still trying to, in good faith, negotiate.
I think they are trying. I think they are trying, yes.
I want to turn your attention a little bit to what's going on with other countries that have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
I think of China, Russia, as well as Iran, also overnight, what's going on in North Korea. Is there a new risk tolerance for nuclear nonproliferation developing, especially what you see coming out of China and Russia?
Well, let me say that when we talk about China or Russia, we should never forget that these countries have nuclear weapons, and they have nuclear weapons as part of a basic agreement that they would keep them in the expectation that they will, in the long term, disarm. But the 5 permanent members of the Security Council are not proliferating. They may have more weapons or less weapons, the less the better, I guess. But the thing here is that what we have, perhaps, is with the current geostrategic situation, there is a perception that nuclear weapons could be on the rise, at least the numbers. I mean.
China specifically is the biggest nuclear energy power. Recently, the IAEA has come
the biggest nuclear energy power, I wouldn't say so. It's a country that has a lot of nuclear energy, and it's building a lot of new nuclear peaceful facilities.
Energy.
Yeah.
But how are you dealing with some of that friction you run into?
But it's not the
with
biggest.
China
Let me tell you, the
IAEA?
United States has 20% of its energy.
Well, it will be the biggest. Likely.
United States, 20%. China has 4% of its current energy from nuclear source. But it's very important because, as you know, China is one of the biggest emitters of CO2. Which are part of the big problem of global warming.
And you're going to talk about
so
this.
it's a very welcome thing that China is leaning so much on nuclear energy.
And you're going to talk about this, I'm sure, at COP. Matt Miller, I'm going to send it back to you in the studio. That was Rafael Grossi, the head of the IAEA here in Washington, D.C.